So welcome to today's Keeping Current. Today we have Christian Addington, who will be telling us all about undergraduate research and why it's good for everybody. And when I was an undergraduate, I wish I had known about such possibilities. So take it away, Christian.
Well, I hope everyone's having a good day so far. Like Dr. Finkel said, my name's Chris Addington. Call me Chris or Christian. Either one is fine with me. And I'm going to be talking about undergraduate research today. So just a quick little intro. I'm a senior computer science major here at UK, and I am currently working with Dr. Goldsmith and PhD candidate Jacob Schluter, and we are working on anchored team formation games, which are a type of hedonic game that Jacob created and based off of tabletop role-playing games. So if you imagine Dungeons and Dragons, where you have someone who runs the game and then you have people that are playing the game, and they draw value from each other and from the person running the game. So like I said, I've been working with Dr. Goldsmith and Jacob, and it's been about a year. I think it's maybe a year in April that I've been working with them. And some of the things that I've worked on while being a part of their research team are algorithm designs, some actual coding, some technical writing, running experiments, and collecting data. I'm going to cover four main reasons why I think undergraduate research is so important. And they're going to be social skills, career path planning, access to knowledge, and experience. So social skills is kind of a nebulous thing where you have different type of social skills that you may want to learn for different types of situations. So specifically, working in a research team is a lot like working in an industry. You work together with others towards the completion of a larger goal. So you get to gain social skills by interacting with other students, other researchers, and professionals with similar interests. And these are often people that you may not have met if you weren't conducting research. You also get to learn about their research and present your own research. So being able to have intellectual discourse with others is a key social skill for industry and for academia. So through undergraduate research, you may have the opportunity to present at a conference, to be published in a journal, or to attend a conference and be able to practice speaking with people about these sometimes more difficult topics. Next, undergraduate research is great for your career planning. So many 4 years bachelor students who don't do research won't be exposed to academic career fields. I know personally, before I started doing undergraduate research, I didn't really understand what it was to be an academic. I didn't understand that there was more than just teaching a lecture 3 times a week and doing some research on the side. So meeting professors, professional researchers, and other undergraduates can focus what you want to do for a career. So it can open up new possibilities that you may never have heard of, or you may have heard of but had a different idea of what that profession may be like than what is the actual job of that profession. So you're exposed to these new jobs and people within those jobs, so you can learn what it's really like to be in that career field. You can learn what those positions, what type of things you can do to be a better candidate for those positions, and you can learn whether you think you'll like those positions or not. So you can really tailor your career in a way that'll be most fulfilling to you. Next, access to knowledge. So students can't take every course offered, even if they go to graduate school. So there's only so many computer science courses and electives that I can take until I, am in a couple $100,000 of debt to UK for being a 10th year senior. So this can leave gaps in knowledge for more specialized fields because universities can only offer a certain number of courses. So here at UK, there's only so many courses that can be offered due to university size, due to interest in classes, and due to the actual professors that we have. If we don't have a professor who specializes in one of these fields, then it'd be hard to teach a course on it and teach it well. Research allows students to learn about specialized fields that their university may not teach about. So something like hedonic games, I may have only heard about in college. I had artificial intelligence with Dr. Goldsmith, and we talked about hedonic games a little bit, but I never would have learned about things like additively separable hedonic games. I wouldn't have learned about other research that Dr. Goldsmith had done with other PhD students while at UK. And I may not have taken an interest in the AI field in general without learning these things and talking with people who really have a good understanding of the AI field. Finally, experience. Working with research and research mentors gives students real-world experience outside of a classroom. So at least in my experience, working with Dr. Goldsmith and Jacob has been completely different from taking a course. It's structured differently. There are different outcomes that we are striving for, and I have to put in different types of work. So instead of reading a textbook and preparing for quizzes, doing some coding assignments, I instead have to find academic journals, try and understand those academic journals, bring info from those academic journals to research meetings. I have to think of new heuristics or algorithms and think of ways to implement them that are different from what's already being used. Students learn how to work in groups, how to work on specific portions of a project, and how to work towards a strict deadline. So these things are all reflective of an industry type job as well. You're going to, if you are in industry, you're most likely going to work in an engineering group. You're going to work on some portion of some larger project, and your portion of the project is most likely going to have a strict deadline. Research also teaches independence. Students need to put in the work on their own to help contribute to the team. You can't just read your textbook every once in a while, show up for lecture, and skate by with a A or B. You have to actually put in the work so that you can contribute to the team in a meaningful way. So one of the hardest things for me personally was figuring out how to approach professors. I'm more of an introverted person, so the task of actually going to a professor's office and asking them to work with them was pretty daunting. So I've come up with a couple of things that could be useful for meeting with a professor. So the first thing that I did was I looked into their research interests and found a professor whose work interests me. So if you go on the CS website, most professors will have their research interests outlined on their page. They may have an external page that holds some of their actual research examples or excerpts from papers or publications that they are in. You want to set up a meeting with them. So professors want to work with people that they know. If I just walked into Dr. Finkel's office and said, Dr. Finkel, I want to research with you, and I know this is our first time meeting, but I want to work with you, then he may not be so inclined to have me join his research team at first. He may want to get to know me, get to know what things interest me, get to know what kind of CS courses I've taken, and how far along I am as a computer scientist. Another little tip is knowing the preferred method of communication. So if they have it readily available, where they prefer email, or they have on their site a poll where you can choose a time to meet with them, learning that and using their preferred method of communication helps show that you are serious about working with them. And then finally, you want to talk to them about their research, why you think it is interesting, and what you could bring to their research team. So you don't need to know exactly how their research is helpful to humanity. You don't need to know all of the implications of their research. You don't even need to know all of the computer science and mathematical backbones that make up their research. But you want to know some base level of knowledge, and you want to talk to them about why you think you would be a good fit as a researcher. Next, preparation is key. So just like a job interview, you should know some about their research area before you reach out. If you know nothing and you show up and they're asking you questions, you're not going to look like you're serious about working with them. So knowing a little bit goes a long way. You want to know how much time you are able to commit to research, depending on if you're taking a heavy course load, if you have to work outside of school, if you have other family commitments. Being open, honest, and upfront about how much time you realistically can put into the research is also going to be a key to success. So if you're able to put in a couple of hours per week, then your research mentor can tailor their expectations to the amount of time you can put in. You want to try to figure out what you want to get out of research, but with a big caveat. It's okay if you don't know yet. I didn't know what I wanted to get out of research. All I knew is I wanted to try it. So something as small as wanting to learn something new is good enough for something you want to get out of research. And finally, if you can, bring a technical question. If you can find a technical question about their work, that's even better. But just showing that you're critically thinking and you want to know more is another good step in showing that you would be a good fit for an undergraduate researcher. And on a little sidebar, this is how I met Dr. Goldsmith. I met Dr. Goldsmith because I got the faculty advising sheet, and everyone was assigned, I believe, by UK student ID and the letter of their last name. So the professor that I was initially assigned to, their research interests didn't really match up with mine. So what I did was I looked at some other professors and I found Dr. Goldsmith. I liked a lot of what she had listed as her research interests. And so I got in touch with her and asked her to be my faculty advisor. During this conversation, she herself brought up working on research with her and Jacob, which is something I had planned on bringing up, but she beat me to the punch. So after that, I began to meet with her and Jacob, and within a few weeks, I started working as a member of their research team. Another key thing about your college experience is maximizing your time. And this isn't different for undergraduate research, because you can only be an undergraduate researcher for as long as you're an undergraduate. So even if you don't plan to go into academia, undergraduate research is very rewarding. So getting the most out of your time is key. So here are a couple things that I use to help maximize my time. I am often ready to read, reread, and discuss academic papers. Reading academic papers, especially when you haven't done it before, can be hard. They can be dense, they can be technical, and it may take multiple read-throughs to fully understand what the paper is conveying. So you want to be able to understand as much as possible and bring any questions you have into research meetings so that you can fully understand the article, the publication, the journal, whatever it is you're reading. Another thing is take frequent notes. Write down your thoughts throughout the week and have topics for discussion ready for meetings. So if you're prepared for a meeting, you're not only going to get more out of that meeting, but you'll be more helpful to your research group. And finally, try to talk about things outside of research. With a small caveat, not all professors are as interested in others. Some professors are more interested on focusing on a personal relationship and helping to foster you as an academic. Other professors who, may be more busy or may not have as much free time, have to take research as their main priority, and that's okay. That's another thing you can look for is if you want that personal relationship, you can look for a professor who is looking for the same thing. Or if you're looking more just to work on the research aspect, you can find a professor who is more interested in the research aspect. And a couple things that I've learned through my undergraduate research about myself. The first thing I learned is I really don't like giving presentations. Like I said earlier, I'm pretty introverted. So giving planned presentations gives me anxiety. But that's something I'm going to have to do for most of my life. whether I'm in academia or in industry. I'm going to have to give presentations to groups of people, and I'm going to have to be comfortable doing it. So working in undergraduate research has allowed me to give presentations in more low stakes ways, like keeping current. Another thing is I work well with stricter timelines. So I tend to procrastinate a lot. But if I give myself a strict timeline where I have to do part of a project by this date, part of a project by this next date, and finish the project by this third date, then I tend to work better. And so this is something that has actually helped me throughout college and will hopefully help me in academia or in industry. I enjoy working in smaller groups. Smaller groups make me feel more included, and I don't have to be the center of attention. So if you're on a two-person team, then you and the other person may be the liaisons for the group, where you're sort of the center of attention when presenting or when discussing research or work. In smaller groups, I have enough people that I can talk to and feel included, but not too many people where it feels like, again, I'm giving large presentations. I've also learned that I really like doing the work that Dr. Goldsmith and hopefully soon Dr. Jacob do. I like working in artificial intelligence. I really like working with them specifically. I like being able to contribute to something, and I like advancing my own knowledge. I've also learned, like I said earlier, about academia. It isn't all about research and teaching. There's making connections, fostering relationships, meeting people with similar interests, and disseminating your work. So finally, two articles that I read a little bit of, or that I read fully, that I think could be interesting to other undergraduates are this undergraduate research as a high impact student experience is a academic survey of science students who participated in undergraduate research programs and how they had positive impacts from those undergraduate research programs. And then the second article, Why Undergraduate Research Matters in College, is more of a layman read about ways to get involved, grant opportunities, financial opportunities, and ways that you can contribute. I want to thank you all for your time, and I'm open to questions.
Well, thank you. That's an interesting point of view. My first question is, how much would this be different if you had chosen a different advisor, do you think?
So one thing that I read about in this first article by Lopato is that within this study, students directly linked, or there was a direct link between students' outcomes from the summer research and how they rated their mentor. So the higher they rated their mentor, the more they got from this research experience. So Dr. Goldsmith, I would give a 10 out of 10 as a research mentor. So not to ruffle any feathers, but I don't know if I would have had the same positive level of research if I was with a different professor. I think Dr. Goldsmith is a good fit for me because like on a personality level. So I think, I don't want to say it would have been negative, but I don't think it would have been as positive as if I had chosen Dr. Goldsmith.
Other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Okay, I would like to take actually the benefit of having on this call also one of the computer science academic advisors, Mr. Stephen Hicks. We had a meeting this morning with the advisors. We were talking about this faculty advising component of the currently ongoing preparations for the priority registration. I was very pleased to hear your comment, how you actually just initiated your contact with Dr. Goldsmith through actually that mandated required faculty advising. So that is fantastic, actually, message to advertise the faculty advising both to the students and to the faculty, because you are an example of success as well, indirectly maybe, of having that opportunity of what our computer science department, as not every program in the college require from every student to meet with a faculty advisor. Maybe, okay, it was not a question, it was a comment, but you may follow up with your comment, and maybe also I prompted that way Mr. Hicks to ask his question, or maybe add comments.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the comment. To be perfectly honest, if it hadn't been for the mandatory faculty advising, I probably wouldn't have reached out at all. It's something that I really had to push myself to even begin to bring up with Dr. Goldsmith. So being forced to sit down with her and talk about my plans and work out my schedule was very beneficial to me.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. You know, just okay, we are considering different maybe modalities for those meetings. One of them is to have also group meetings that would address, you know, also maybe some anxieties from students who may be shy. Okay, so we are trying about thinking about different options. But yes, okay, just I'm very happy once again that you agree with me that the faculty advising is a very important aspect of the full learning experience in a good undergraduate program, and we have a very good program. So, okay, Mr. Hicks, maybe Stephen, you have comments here, if you are.
I do have, Dr. Romchak, thank you very much. I do have one.
I'm sorry, because it is Dr. Finkel's role. So sorry if I'm just maybe taking.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, thank you.
I was curious just what you think the most valuable aspect of faculty advising is, and how you think most students, the most important thing that they could get out of faculty advising in general, having that relationship with the faculty.
So I would say personally, the most important aspect to me was that relationship with Dr. Goldsmith and Jacob. Knowing someone who has gone through, you know, their master's program, their doctorate. In my family, both my parents have masters, but one's in education and one's in business. So I might be the first STEM major in my family, well, education. I might be the first engineering major in my family. So getting to talk to them and talk through some worries that I may have had and understand the path in front of me, I think that was the most useful to me, because it gave me personally a confidence boost. It made me realize that I understand what I'm doing, and that, for lack of a better word, I am good enough to be a computer scientist. I think for each student, what is most important to them will differ based on really what they need. And I would implore other students to just be as open as they can, because what you think may be the most important thing going in, sorry, my cat's being a little crazy. What you think may be the most important thing going in turns out to be something that wasn't so important to begin with, if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much. And with all the restrictions this semester, this past year with the COVID, we were thinking of maybe having Zoom group sessions where students could pop in and do a group session. Do you think that would be beneficial? It would take the pressure off some of the, like you said, students who don't feel comfortable coming forth?
Yeah, I'm a little mixed on it for two reasons. One, I think that it would be much easier for students, especially those that are introverted or nervous, like myself. The only reason I'm a little hesitant on it would be if I had gone to a group session with Dr. Goldsmith, I may have just gone through the session and got her to sign my advising slip and gone on with my life. I think that there may be either a mix of smaller groups, so like 2 to 4 people or 2 to 5 people, or a advising group session, and then you have to have a one-on-one session, depending on professors' availability. You don't want to eat up too much of their time. I think a combination of the two might be better.
Excellent. Thank you for your feedback, and I enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
So I can't imagine saying to one student in a group of 5, hey, Chris, would you like to work on a research project? That would be rude. And even to say to someone, hey, Chris, have you thought about research? Maybe I'd say to a group that were all very strong students or students that I knew, hey, have you guys all thought about? But there are students I don't want to say that to. And if the groups are random, I think that we lose that piece.
Chris and perhaps other students that are attending this presentation, how often do you hear from your colleagues comments to the effect, oh, I would like to be involved in research, but I really don't know how to get started? Is there really a demand for it, or there might be demand and students don't realize that they could be interested? That is actually part of the question. Is it something we are really overlooking, not being more proactive about, we as faculty?
I think your second statement, where students may not even know that they want to do undergraduate research, would be correct. Because in my experience, I've talked to a couple people about, like, one-on-one about how I got involved in undergraduate research. But in a more general sense, when I talk to people overall about, hey, I do undergraduate research with Dr. Goldsmith, here's some of the things we do, that sort of thing, people are usually fairly interested about it and ask a couple follow-up questions, ask how I got involved, something like that. So I think students may not even not understand, but may not realize that it's not only a possibility, but a very real possibility that they can get involved in undergraduate research with a professor at their own university. Because beforehand I thought, I'll have to apply to an REU, or I'll have to wait till graduate school, or I'll have to do the undergraduate research scholars program. I'll have to do one of these very specific and potentially competitive things to get involved. When the case was, I just had to go to Dr. Goldsmith's office and talk to her.
One last comment from me on that is perhaps directed more to Dr. Jaromczyk and possibly other faculty members that are attending. I think research experience is very important, but is it really sufficiently stressed in our department among our faculty? Is there any incentive, or I feel we are perhaps at some point it's important, but on the other hand, we have to have enough interest among faculty and enough people willing to do it. And I know some of us are doing that very frequently, have many undergraduate student advisees, some probably not at all. There will be perhaps this mismatch of interest on the part of students and lack of interest on the part of professors. That's the danger that I see. Almost all students that I started to work with came to me because I needed to have undergraduate students on my team, and I simply send emails letting them know that I am looking for people. Invariably, there were always people responding and then eventually meeting with me and eventually working with me. So this mechanism seemed to be working before and probably will be working in the future. But is there anything else that we can do, and would there be interest among our faculty?
Something interesting that I've seen while looking at graduate schools is very specifically the University of Colorado at Boulder, at least for PhD students, has an entire webpage dedicated to what professors that calendar year are specifically looking for researchers and looking for PhD candidates to work on research with them. So one thing I thought would be if UK could implement something similar, where they could focus it on undergraduate or graduate, or where they could just generally say, I am looking for students, here are the research projects I'm working on, and here are the levels of education that I'm looking for these projects.
This is something we could probably implement at the undergraduate level as well.
Yeah, it's also a matter of disseminating this information, because there are some units that at the university undergraduate research unit, they are undergoing restructuring now, but they kept lists. The question is how it is promoted. And again, okay, sorry for repeating, but faculty meetings might be the opportunity to actually to provide resources, okay, and information about that. But okay, I would like to also thank you, Chris, for very nicely prepared, thoughtfully prepared presentation.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks. This time we had plenty of time for questions, which is always good to have.